Well, we got some interesting news earlier today. The Cleveland Browns and their stadium saga continues to evolve, and we've got this very detailed article. Browns owners buying 176 acres in Brook Park, Ohio, possibly moving outside of Cleveland. This location right next to the airport. Let's take a look at this. The owners of the Cleveland Browns football team have reportedly reached a purchase agreement to acquire a large piece of land in the Cleveland suburb of Brook Park, leading to speculation that the Browns could leave the city of Cleveland for a second time in the team's 78-year history. Now, obviously, this would be a different situation. They would still be called the Cleveland Browns. They would be just slightly outside of the city, according to three sources who spoke to the breaking news real estate blog Northeast Ohio Transformation on the condition of anonymity. The Haslam Sports Group has a contract to buy a 176-acre parcel that's 9 miles southwest of downtown Cleveland. It's about 1,000 feet from Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, located on the other side of Ohio, Route 237. It remains to be seen what the purpose of the land purchase in Brook Park is for. It may be a genuine attempt by the Haslam Sports Group to build a football stadium in Cleveland suburbs. It could also be an insurance policy by the Haslams in case talks with the city of Cleveland officials fail to produce a deal very soon for the renovation of the city-owned Cleveland Browns Stadium on the lake. And we've seen this stadium saga evolve. Just last year around April, we got news that the Browns were going to talk and actually release an update on a potential $1 billion stadium rebuild that could have had them playing elsewhere for 2 years as Cleveland Browns Stadium was to be partially rebuilt. Maybe they were thinking of adding a roof. We've seen the Jacksonville Jaguars ponder doing something similar where they're going to have to be displaced for 2 years as their stadium gets constructed. We've also heard that the Browns might want to stay in downtown but go somewhere else other than their current site, and now there's this potential huge 176-acre purchase right next to the airport. It's a great location, and it is right next to Cleveland, only about 10 miles away from the city. The article later says, and this is an important part, the sources did not even say if the property is for a new stadium, but it is big enough that it could certainly meet the criteria for one. The criteria is a level 100-plus acre site with good transportation access. Now, another thing that's important to note when it comes to these deals where you have teams and ownership groups buying land, that doesn't mean guaranteed a stadium is going there. We just saw, and I gave an update on a video talking about Arlington Heights and how that situation, because of a tax problem, has potentially fizzled to where you've got the Bears purchasing 200 acres of land in Arlington Heights, and it might all go for nothing. Chicago is looking at potentially going back to the lakefront themselves. So right now, the Browns have a very interesting decision on their hands. A lot of this has to do with money. The mayor of Cleveland coming out last year saying public tax dollars are not going to help fund this stadium. I think that got Haslam pissed off. Maybe this is a bargaining chip. I'm guessing that's probably what it is, in Brook Park, buying up some land there, use it as a bargaining chip. It's not like Cleveland's our only option. That's what they're saying. I think the original plan was to potentially build a new Browns stadium in a different part of Cleveland, but obviously securing that land, having a big enough area, that's a problem in and of itself. Maybe this is the next best option if you're Haslam and you're trying to start an artificial bidding war between Cleveland and you've got this other option with Brook Park. A real estate insider speculated last summer that the Brook Park site would be among several considered by the Browns if negotiations with the city of Cleveland failed to produce a cost-sharing deal in a timely manner for a nearly $1 billion renovation to their current stadium. Their stadium did also get a smaller renovation in 2013. A City of Cleveland source said that it's unlikely the Haslams would secure a purchasing agreement merely to motivate Cleveland city officials to move faster or to pursue a better deal for the Haslams. The reason is that city officials don't seem to know about the Brook Park agreement. Leverage works only if the target is made aware of it. So it seems like Haslam just did this without caring whether or not the city of Cleveland knew about it. And obviously, if he was using leverage, he would want the city of Cleveland to know about this land purchase. This is a key point when it comes to the location of NFL stadiums. Interestingly, 12 of 32 NFL teams already play their home games in suburban municipals. That number would grow to 13 if the Bears follow through, possibly moving to Arlington Heights or maybe even another suburb surrounding. It's not just Arlington Heights, there's other suburbs in the mix as well, but you can certainly have an MLB stadium in a suburb. The reason it works is because NFL games are finite. They're very high in demand and there's a limited supply. So you're really only having 8 or 9 events a year. It's not like you're constantly bringing a bunch of people to this exclusive area where there's very little population density. You're only bringing them 8 or 9 times a year. Obviously, it's different with MLB and NBA with many more events per year. With NFL, with just 8 or 9 games, it's very easy to kind of expand your location because it is such a finite amount of games. Construction for a new stadium could take about 3 or 4 years. Normally it's 3. Normally they can get stadiums done in 3. While the renovations, if they do a big renovation to Cleveland Browns Stadium, it's going to be 2 years of renovating, you would think, especially if it's $1 billion, and the Browns would have to go somewhere else and play elsewhere for 2 years. That's why everyone was floating the idea, talking about maybe the Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton, maybe Ohio Stadium. There were some other things floated out there, but this is certainly an interesting development when it comes to the Cleveland Browns' potential future home. Will they stay at Cleveland Browns Stadium and do a 2-year massive $1 billion rebuild, or will they move out of Cleveland altogether, 10 miles south, Brook Park, right next to the airport, and build, I believe it's going to be an open stadium. At least that's the initial rumors. It says a new open air, 60 to 70,000 seat stadium could cost up to $2 billion. Stadiums with a lid cost even more. Yeah, if they did decide to do a retractable roof or a fixed or some type of translucent, certainly it's a very critical decision. You know, when you're talking about the location, it might be slightly a problem if you wanted to have big time concerts and the stadiums in Brook Park. I don't think it's going to be that crazy though, because you have to understand it's right next to the airport. So that actually might help them even more. You would also, build up that area in Brook Park. It wouldn't just be the stadium. They would also build up, you can see it says ballpark villages. Well, for NFL, it's stadium districts. That's what it would be. Luxury apartments, hotels, practice facilities. All of that stuff would need to be built, and certainly they would have the land for it with the amount of acres they are purchasing. So this is a developing story. We will have to see what happens. You can see the ideal potential revitalization of the lakefront. The Browns have had a weird situation where they've got their stadium right on a lake, but in between the land, in between the stadium and the lake is completely undeveloped. It just looks terrible. And they've been trying to do a potential revitalization. They would be developing the lakefront. That's where a lot of the money would go into. And then also they would be doing some type of stadium renovation. I would imagine there would be bigger overhangs that would go on to Cleveland Browns Stadium. I do not think they would make it a retractable roof. They've talked about, since 2006, possibly adding a retractable roof to Cleveland Browns Stadium. It's never happened. It's very hard to add retractable roofs to open stadiums that were built open. Sure, it's feasible, but if you're going to do that, why not just build a new stadium altogether? So there's a lot of different options here for the Browns. Do they stay in Cleveland? Do they go to Brook Park? Do they possibly go to a different part of Cleveland? I think that's probably ruled out at this point. I think it comes down to possibly leaving, going to Brook Park with a brand new stadium and a huge district right next to the airport. Very likely going to be some type of dome, probably a translucent roof, maybe retractable. Or do they stay and develop the lakefront, keep the open-air stadium, and probably add a bigger overhang to try and help the fans stay dry and out of the elements? We will see what ends up happening. There are a lot of renderings for a potential lakefront development project. I wonder if we'll get any renderings for a Brook Park brand new stadium. Wouldn't that be amazing? Another thing to take into account when it comes to the bigger picture of a lot of these renovations, if you look at the Cleveland Browns, the renderings of their potential lakefront development, there's virtually no parking. And I just did a video on the White Sox, and there's no parking surrounding that. So stadiums in general, whether it's, and arenas, whether it's MLB, NFL, NBA, the trend is very limited parking no matter where. I do wonder how that would be affected with Brook Park. You'd probably need a little bit more parking, but they're really trying to like camouflage the parking, and it's understandable considering how ugly those parking lot deserts look right next to stadiums. So I would imagine if they do some massive development in Brook Park right next to the airport, like on the other side, they would have the parking further away and there'd be a bunch of buildings surrounding the main stadium. And I would probably lean towards a translucent roof at this point in terms of the development. It doesn't make much sense if you're going to have a stadium right next to an airport. You're opening yourself up to host all the major concerts year round, get the Super Bowl, all of it, the Final Four. Why not just build a translucent roof, spend the extra $500 million and generate even more revenue? Probably have the translucent roof pay itself off within 10 to 12 years of its existence if you can host events year round. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.